Just something weird just popped up. All right. So, I wanted to talk about our experience with when Levi was born, the birth story, I guess, of Levi. Partially because it's like I lost my train of thought. Mostly because I know even from when he was born to now, which he's 14 months old right now, I've forgotten a lot of the details or I have to think really hard to try to remember things. And I think it was just like a really cool experience, and like the Lord was really present in Levi's, like that whole experience. And it's just like such a once in a lifetime thing that I want to be able to remember like what I learned from it and just what that experience was like, and not be asking, you know, if Levi starts asking questions, if he cares, or if his wife asks questions or whatever, I want to be able to look back at this and confidently know like what the answers are. So, what do you mean? Hopefully.
I don't know. Who knows what he's gonna ask?
Yeah, that's true. So, yeah. So like I said, it's Levi's 14 months old right now. So I've been wanting to do this for a long time, but yeah, we're just getting to it now. So I guess, yeah, I expected to have Levi early because my mom had 3 of her 4 kids early, and Avery's mom had all, like him and his brothers, early. So, yeah, I was just like expecting that. So his due date was December 1st, and definitely around Thanksgiving, I was like, this baby's gonna be here. But the days and the weeks went on, and he wasn't. So then, December 1st, on his due date, I had a appointment with one of the midwives whose name was Emily, and she's actually was the midwife that I had for a lot of appointments throughout pregnancy, and she was like someone that I really relied on and just like really appreciated her knowledge, but then also the way that she like cared for me. And so yeah, I went to the appointment on his due date, and well, basically 2 things. She said I really like wasn't progressing at all, a little bit, but like not really. Like he wasn't coming any day. It was going to be a while still, and I had high blood pressure, and so if I feel like I have to sneeze.
Bless
Thank you. And so if I went back the next week, and it was likely that I was going to have an appointment the next week because I wasn't far along. If I had high blood pressure and wasn't progressing, I would most likely need to be induced because if you have blood pressure, if your blood pressure is high 2 appointments in a row, then you are diagnosed with gestational hypertension, and that can quickly turn into preeclampsia, which is just like really serious for you and the baby. So, do you have anything you want to add?
I feel like that's a weird place to stop.
I was gonna move on to then a week later.
Oh yeah, I guess for me, I don't. Yeah, I definitely expected the baby to be early, and I think even before that, there was just a lot of buildup in. I don't know. Even thinking back to like the gender reveal, like when we found out that Levi was gonna be Levi and not a girl. I don't know. I just think that there was a lot of like really cool anticipation that led up to that. Obviously, both of us being first time parents. Yeah, finding out the gender that it was going to be a boy, and then being able to like pray over Levi specifically by name, like having names picked out before that, and then figuring out that it was going to be a boy. Yeah, I don't know. That was really cool. And then yeah, just that anticipation of like, okay, he's going to be early. He's going to be early. He's going to be early. no doctor or anything ever told us that. That's just something we like made up and decided on in our minds, I
Yeah.
guess. Um, yeah, it was just like really like interesting, like leading up to that. There was just a lot of anticipation and a lot of excitement, and I feel like too, like we're both planners and like preparers. And so like we had our hospital bags like packed for like weeks, like pretty much
Yeah.
from
I think
Thanksgiving.
a couple months.
Yeah, like we had our stuff like packed up, ready to go at a drop of a hat.
Yeah.
And
We
so,
had like we did the like classes or whatever late in October.
yeah, like way early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had the nursery already.
Yeah.
Car seat in our car. Yeah, we were all
Yeah.
ready.
Yeah. Yeah, we had the car seat in our car for like over a month. Yeah, it was just like all that stuff was like ready to go. And there was no baby. So we were just like waiting, which was really cool. But I think more so for you. I don't really think I felt like anxiety over that or like stress about that. I think that was more so like what you felt. You felt more like, oh my goodness, is everything like okay? Because we were like expecting him to be early and it wasn't.
Well, I wasn't like worried about him health wise. I was more just like I wasn't gonna go into this right now, but that like is a good place where it like all ties in. I was really wanting to have a natural birth, and I knew that there was like a time limit to that because you can only go 2 weeks past your due date. I think that's like everywhere. I think that's kind of just like common practice now because there's a lot of things that can happen if your like placenta gets old and your body is like carrying a baby around for 10 11 months. A lot of other things can go wrong. So they cap it at 2 weeks. At 42 weeks pregnant, you are induced. And so I didn't want to I wanted to naturally go into labor. I wanted to be able to like work with my body and feel what my body was doing and really like rely on Avery and rely on the Lord through that process and just like trust that my body was doing what it was supposed to do. And I felt like if there was medical intervention like being induced or a C-section, or I mean anything like that, C-section's a little different I guess, but that I couldn't trust my body because it's not actually my body doing it, but it's like the medication doing it. And so that's why I felt like I didn't think that there was anything wrong with Levi. Like all the like he was great. He was growing well. Like there was no issues with him. But I was worried about that process of labor and delivery and what that was going to be like. And I felt like the longer that it went, the harder it was going to be. And then I also felt bad because your parents came to meet him, and he wasn't born then. They came like for like a week.
Like the third. I thought it was just like the third through the fifth, or the third through the sixth, or something like that.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Like right after like what his due date was supposed to be. That way, in case like we didn't go on his due date, I think is what, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So yeah, either like I felt bad because his parents flew here, or I don't remember, but they came to meet Levi, and Levi wasn't here. Even when they left, he wasn't here.
Yeah.
So they didn't get to meet him until he was like over a month old. Or no, he wasn't quite a month old yet. He was like 3 weeks. Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, and just with all of that, like I felt like useless and clueless. I mean, I felt like kind of clueless the whole time. I mean, that's like the body, like the way that babies grow and like child development is something that you've like studied and been really interested in for a while. So I'm just kind of like this big oaf, just like hanging around, like doing what I can. But like, yeah, we took the classes and we're prepared and went through the birth plan and all that stuff. And so like, I felt ready, but then, yeah, just like, he didn't come on time. So I was like, oh, well, I guess like you're just along for the ride. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. There's nothing that like either of us could have done about that. But so yeah, so then we went into it was a full week later, and we went to that follow-up appointment. And your blood pressure
well, it was
was
6 days later. December 7th. Um,
Oh yeah.
yeah, yeah, and so my blood pressure was high again, and yeah, I saw that my blood pressure was high when the nurse took it. And so Avery was at that appointment with me. Were you there with me on the first? I don't think you were.
Oh, I don't think that I was, no.
Yeah, I don't think so either. So he was there with me on December 7th, and we like went back to the room and we're waiting for Emily to come back. It was an appointment with her again, and we just kind of were like, my blood pressure was high, so we were like,
we need to be prepared to go to the hospital tonight.
Yeah. So Emily came in, and that's what she said. She's like, it's as low as it could be while being considered high, but it is high, and so like the medical like recommendation would be that you get induced. And so I was really grateful that she had told me that a week before, because had she not told me at my last appointment, I don't think I would have been okay with that. But I like went into this appointment prepared of like, that might be what's about to happen, and like that's just what it's going to be. And so I think like we had our whole birth plan, and I was wanting to do it naturally, and I had all these other like coping tools and skills that I was prepared to use, but I was like holding on to that plan lightly. And we like had conversations about that of like, we need to be clear at the hospital that this is what I want, and that's what we're gonna like shoot for. But like, our bodies don't always work exactly the way that they're supposed to, and birth is doesn't always go perfectly, and you don't know what the baby's gonna be doing. And so like, I'm not against if these certain things are what's best for me and Levi, like I'm not against doing things differently. So
Well, that's what I was gonna say too. In that week, there was a lot of prayer and conversation with the Lord and with each other about like, yeah, in a perfect world, this is the way that things are gonna happen, but we don't live in a perfect world, and your blood pressure had been high for like a lot of your appointments leading up to that, or higher.
yeah, it hadn't been like, my blood pressure is usually like on the lower end.
Yeah, so it wasn't at a place where it was like concerning before that, but
yeah, higher than it normally is.
Yeah, so that was something we were like prepped for and like ready for, like going into that appointment. Like, if your blood pressure is high, we are going to go to the hospital today. Whether that be right after, or what ended up happening was they called the hospital and they pretty much put us on standby of like, whenever there's a room ready, they'll call you and you can come down, but like just hang out till then.
Yeah.
So I was like mid after, like it was like around like lunchtime, like 1 or 2 o'clock or something. And so we went home. All of our stuff was already ready. All of our stuff was already packed. So we were just hanging out. I think we both showered and like.
I tried to sleep for a while.
Yeah, just like hung
Didn't
out.
actually fall asleep at all.
We called our families though, and we're like, hey, this is what's gonna, like, we're gonna go at any point. And then it was like right around like 8 o'clock we got the phone call, and so we drove down and.
Yeah, and that was, I don't know about you, but I feel like that was really cool to be able to have that time. And I mean, labor progresses slowly at the beginning, so maybe people have more time than I'm imagining anyway. But I thought it was cool to know, like, we're going to the hospital tonight, so like, yeah, being able to take a shower and being able to rest and that stuff was kind of cool. But it was also like a super weird experience, because I wasn't in labor, but I'm like, Levi is going to be born in the next like day or two. We're about to go to the hospital to have a baby, but I feel the same I felt for the past 3 months.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So we go down there, and it's like nighttime, which is actually super nice because the parking lot was like empty. It wasn't really busy. I think it was like after, so this was in 2021. Yeah, 2021.
December.
So
2021.
yeah, so this was in 2021. So there's COVID was like still, like we still had the mask for the most part. When we were in the room, I didn't mask at all. Yeah. Except when they gave you your epidural, they made me wear a mask. other than that though. But so anyway, so we come into the hospital. We're like masked up. Visitation I think is like over at that point or something.
Mhm.
So the hospital is like super quiet. So it was really, yeah, kind of strange. Kind of like you said, like I don't know. I feel like growing up, you just always envision like I always thought having a kid is gonna be the perfect excuse to speed and throw my hazards on and just drive as fast as I want. But like, yeah, we were just like hanging out for some like
Yeah, just like chilling.
like all day, and then we like yeah, just casually get in our car and drive down to the hospital, and then
I wasn't really nervous. Like, I was really excited when we found out that like I was gonna have him that day because I had like like Avery had said that whole week prayed about it and like become okay with the idea of being induced. But so I was excited when Emily said that. I was like, yes, we like finally get to meet him. But then when we were actually driving to Morgantown and to the hospital, that was like the longest 30-minute drive of my life. I like became so nervous and was like trying not to be nervous because I was like, that's not gonna help anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, it felt like it took forever to get there.
Yeah, so we get there and we get checked in, and well, I think I dropped you off and I went and parked the car, brought all of our stuff in.
No, we walked in together.
Okay, we walked in together, yeah. So then, yeah, we walked in and yeah, got our like room. I think they skipped the. Isn't there supposed to be a room before
Triage.
your room? Yeah, I think we skipped triage, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
Since they knew we were coming and like had that like room reserved for us.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if all hospitals are like this, but the room we had at Ruby, oh yeah, Levi was born at Ruby Memorial Hospital in Morgantown.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the room was like pretty big. I felt like it was pretty big.
Yeah, it was really nice. It was like a suite.
Yeah, so there was like a bathroom, and then like they could like section it off for like when people were like walking in. That way you didn't just like walk in and
yeah, there's like a curtain around the door.
Yeah. So then, yeah, there was like your bed, and then there was a little couch, and then like a TV and like a like dresser bookshelf type thing where I put like we had so much stuff. That was the one thing that I think like we overpacked. I think.
Well, part of it was. Well, we don't have to go on. But I packed a lot of like coping things and didn't use any of them.
Yeah. Yeah, Levi's birth also like wasn't smooth, but we weren't there for a really long time after. So I think that's part of it. Like we brought a lot of snacks, we brought a lot of things to like entertain ourselves that we like were A, not there long enough to use, but then B, like too tired to use like by the time like everything had gotten like going. And because we were there, we probably got into the room right around 9, I would say. And then yeah, like we kind of like stayed up because you still like weren't then progressing super quick overnight, and then it was like that next like mid-morning.
Yeah, which is also the thing with like being induced. I was preparing myself for the worst, I think, and so people sometimes when you're induced and you haven't progressed at all, sometimes it takes like 2-3 days to have the baby. So that's what I was like. I was preparing myself for that because I didn't want to be like, all right, we're having him, tomorrow, and then, and he was born on Wednesday, so I wasn't going to be like, okay, he's going to be born Wednesday, and then I actually get like Friday, Saturday when I have him. So, yeah, but yeah, so there wasn't that much time actually before he was born as we were expecting. But we were in the hospital for a while because he got jaundice and stuff. We were there we checked out on Saturday. I think you're right. I think it was like Friday afternoon.
Yeah, it was because Wednesday, and then like overnight, and then I think it was like Thursday morning or whatever that they were like, because Wednesday evening they like did all those tests and stuff.
Yeah,
and
you're
then,
right.
yeah,
We only
was, like,
stayed
jaundiced.
2 nights after that.
And then yeah, they like it was like 24 hours or whatever, and 24 hours was like 4 a.m. on Friday or something crazy like that. So we stayed till like 6 or 7 maybe. Or no. It was like
it ended up being like noon when we left because it took forever.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves. So we checked in. You were talking about I started that rabbit trail.
Yeah, I was just saying we got checked in, and then they do whatever they do when they induce you. I don't know how that works, but
yeah,
initially when we got there, the midwife Emily wasn't there yet, but she ended up coming Wednesday morning, right? Because we got there
her
Tuesday.
shift was like 7 a.m. to 7 a.m. or 7 p.m. on Wednesday, or 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Something like that. Like she got there pretty early in the morning.
Okay.
But yeah, do you remember that midwife's name that was there when we got there?
Not a clue.
I don't know.
She was the one that was really loud, right?
Yeah.
The one that was like kind of.
She was like tiny, but like if I knew her in real life, I think I would think she was like kind of a little obnoxious, a little overboard.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that, I'm just glad in general that Emily was the one that was there when I had Levi, just because that was like a pre-existing relationship and I really trusted her already. But the energy of this midwife, it was perfect for me checking in and being nervous. She really like helped me become like calm and feel comfortable quickly. But I don't know what she's like at births. Maybe like her energy changes, or maybe she's just like that. I don't know. But I don't think I think I would have. I don't know. That would have been crazy.
Yeah. So they do whatever they do to induce you, and then didn't they check in like every like hour or 2 hours or something? They had like a regular.
So I'll talk about that. Yeah. So because I was being induced, and because I had high blood pressure was the reason I was getting induced. They were checking on me and Levi regularly, and they actually had Levi on continuous fetal monitoring, to where like at the nurses station they were like consistently getting his heartbeat, and it would like notify them if it was low. It didn't get like high at all, but if it was low was really what was concerning with him. And so it did get low sometimes, but the majority of the time it was like the thing was so annoying, and it kept like coming off of my stomach the way it was supposed to be monitoring him. So they were just checking on us a lot because it was, which I didn't know this at the time, but it was considered, I don't think it was considered high risk. Is there I don't know if it's just like low risk and high risk delivery, but it wasn't like low risk. Like it was, like I had no pre-existing conditions or anything like that up until I was diagnosed with hypertension. So it wasn't just like a normal delivery from the beginning, which I didn't like realize that. But yeah, so when we got there, this midwife said that there were like 2 options of starting an induction, and they're pretty much the same medication, but one of them they can check you after 4 hours, and you can start pitocin if you have progressed enough in those 4 hours. The other one, I think it's 12 hours you have to wait.
It was longer, yeah.
But it was longer by like a lot. And so, but she said that like I wasn't like, I had been progressing. I had been having like intermittent random contractions, and so the 4 hours ended up being enough. And so we went with that medication so that like we didn't have to just wait for 12 hours for no reason. So yeah, it was around like 1 a.m. that they started the pitocin. They actually didn't start pitocin right away because I was having, because of whatever other medicine they gave me that's supposed to like ripen your cervix. When you start progressing, if your body kind of like works with itself. And so because one thing was progressing, it kind of like kicked in contractions naturally. And so they didn't give me pitocin at first, but then an hour or 2 later, like it wasn't really that long later, they were like, your contractions have like died down, so now we're gonna give you pitocin. So then not really a ton happened overnight. We were trying to sleep, because we were playing card games before then, and then it got to a certain point that we were like, okay, we are tired, or think I was tired, and I was like, I should try to rest. Um, did you actually sleep at all?
I don't remember.
That couch was really uncomfortable, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think just between when we got there and when we left, I just was like sleeping intermittently, like when I could,
Yeah.
like a few hours here, a few hours there. But yeah, I mean, neither of us really like slept.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I didn't really sleep at all that first night because I was with Pitocin. I was having contractions every 5 minutes max. It was at least one every 5 minutes, and so I would like fall asleep and then have a contraction and like fall asleep. So, yeah, so we were like trying to rest, and then I think it was around like 7 or 8 in the morning. I started to, because overnight the contractions were just kind of like annoying. They weren't really painful, and then around like 7 or 8, I think they started to be like painful. So then we went on a walk, right? And then what?
You were already really grumpy by the time we went on a walk.
I really didn't like that either. I don't remember if it was one of the midwives or one of the nurses, but someone told me when we were walking to, if I had a contraction, like when I had a contraction, to put my hands on the walls and like breathe into it, I think, or like imagine Levi. Do you remember?
Yeah.
I don't really remember, but I just remember she said to like put my hands on the walls and like close my eyes and breathe into the contractions, and the area that we could, I imagined us just like walking through the hospital, but we couldn't leave that unit, which is kind of obvious, I think, but I didn't think about that. But it was really small, like it was just like a little U. It was not a lot of area to walk around, and there were a ton of people. I felt like all over, and I just felt super awkward. So I didn't like it at all. And yeah, I guess I was grumpy. And then
you were in a lot of pain when we went for a walk. You were already the contractions were really strong at that point. Like you were in a lot of pain, and then if I remember correctly, we got up and went on a walk to try to alleviate some of that, to try to distract your mind, and it didn't really work. So we came back into the room, and you tried like doing some stuff on like the yoga ball or whatever that they had there, and I was like trying to talk to you or crack jokes or like do something to like alleviate it, and you were just like not having it. So I think it was at that point, like that wasn't a very long time. Like we walked for maybe like 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, it wasn't very
long. And then we came back into the room and we're maybe doing that like with the medicine ball for like 5, 10 minutes. And then you were like, I need an epidural.
Well, no, it wasn't that quick that I wanted an epidural. Well, because I didn't want one yet. Because the last time they had checked me, I was like 3 centimeters. So I was like, if I'm at 3 centimeters right now, even if I want to get an epidural, I shouldn't get it yet. So I was like, I don't know if you, but I distinctly remember being like, what the heck, like, why is this already so like hard? Because I'm only at like 3 centimeters.
Yeah, you were super irritated, and they checked you, and you were way more progressed than
Well, I think I was at 5 at that point when they checked me, which is not.
I don't remember
I was
the
at 5.
progression of things.
But they had checked I don't remember when they checked and I was 3 centimeters. I don't remember when that was. But then I was 5 centimeters when I called Emily in and was like, can you check me? Because I'm in like more pain than I feel like I should be at 3 centimeters. And she checked me and she was like, you're at 5, so you're progressing, but like you still have a long way to go. Because that's like halfway. You go to 10.
I think that happened earlier in the day.
Oh, that happened before that?
Yeah, because I am fairly confident, and again, maybe this is the repercussions of doing this 14 months after. I'm fairly confident though that after we went on a walk and then came back in and did the medicine ball, that they checked you, and Emily was like, okay, we're ready for the epidural, and then you can start pushing. I don't know, maybe.
No, the epidural is what made me progress so quickly. Yeah. So I'm sure about this. I wasn't sure. I was like, well, maybe I was at 7 centimeters. But no, what you're talking about is after I got the epidural.
Okay.
So yeah, Emily was like, "You're at 5 centimeters," and then I was like, "Okay, well that's better than 3," but yeah, I was like, "This is already really intense, and I can do this for a while longer. But if it keeps getting like more and more intense, and if I'm in labor for like 24 hours,
Yeah.
even like 12 more hours, I was like, I can't do. I don't think I can do this. I don't see how I could do this."
And I think that's when I guess we talked about like at whatever point that was, like Emily checked you and you were like, okay, we could get an epidural now, and that's like I think we, for not very long, but I think we had an exchange of like it's okay to not be able to do this naturally, and like if it
Yeah.
is that intense, like
Yeah.
you can't do like keep going. Like,
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah, and that's like a pride thing. Like there's no reason, and that's kind of also why I think originally, if I would have originally had the birth plan of like getting an epidural, I think that would have been out of like really fear of like the pain or the experience or like things like that. But then at this point, not getting the epidural would have been out of like pride and like proving my strength and like proving like, no, I can do this, like I should be able to do this. And yeah, I think like we had conversations about that beforehand, I think, or maybe I just like prayed about it or whatever, and like knew that within myself, and like didn't want that to be the reason that I did not get an epidural. Like if that's what was best for me and what was best for the process, then like that's what I wanted to do. So yeah, it's kind of ironic because I kind of forgot to say this. I watched a ton of like videos and read a ton of books and stuff about like how to have a baby naturally and how to like naturally handle the pain, and or surges is what they call it when they don't want you to think of it as pain. And a lot of different people talked about you don't want to use coping skills too early, because then by the time you really need them, you've like exhausted them and they don't work as well, and you're almost like bored of them. Like the newness of those coping skills have like worn off. So but then they also say like when your labor is starting and you're at home, you're supposed to act like you're not in labor. So like keep living normal life, keep doing like normal things, take a nap at some point, but you're not supposed to like start breathing through contractions, or like get in a bath or use like your playlist or like different, you're not supposed to do that stuff until you really need it. So we were in the hospital from the very beginning, and like I think I waited too long. I think I needed to start using those things before that point, or I don't know. Maybe at that point I could. I don't know. I guess I feel like I should have started using um like diffuser and like my playlist and all that stuff then, at least. And I felt like I couldn't start doing that because I was only like 5 centimeters. That's like barely, that's halfway. So anyway, yeah. So then at that point, I got an epidural, and then I think we both tried to take a nap. I at least tried to take a nap. I tried to take a nap, and I feel like it like wasn't even 30 minutes later. Like I barely fell asleep or feel like I like rested at all. And the nurse came in and was like, I need to check your monitor, like the monitor for Levi's heart rate. And so she checked it and she was like, oh, that's weird. It's fine. So then I don't remember if she left and came back or what, but Emily then came in, the midwife, and she was like, Levi's heart rate is decelerating, or decels, you know what the, but yeah, so basically like that could be a bad sign, or she didn't say it that way, but basically like that could be concerning, or sometimes that happens if you're progressing quickly. So she asked if she could check me to see if I'd progressed at all, and so then that's when she checked me, and I was either 9 or 10 centimeters. within an hour of being 5 centimeters. Well, no, within an hour of getting the epidural.
Yeah, yeah. Because that's what I was gonna say too. Like they like did that whole process of like bringing the epidural. Like they brought in a whole stinking team to do the epidural, and yeah, that was like the first time that they made me wear the mask, and they had to like make sure everything was like sanitized, and they did the epidural, and then like at that point your body was able to relax enough. Like you were like so tense
really
like through
tense.
the pain
Yeah.
that at least what it seemed like was that was preventing you from moving on. Or like progressing, I guess. And so
as quickly as I could have been.
Yeah, the epidural was like bang, 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 and then
and we didn't like wait long for the epidural either. Like they were available when they called them, so they came in like within 10 minutes of me telling Emily I wanted an epidural.
Yeah, it was really fast.
Which is crazy. You don't hear of that like happening very often. So yeah, it was really quick, and so I wasn't ready for that. She was like, "Are you?" Like you were gonna be ready at like any point, and I was like, oh okay, wow. And she asked if I felt pressure to push, and I didn't at that point. So she was like, okay, we'll just wait a little bit longer. Then there's no like we can wait for him to just like naturally move down a little bit more. So I don't know. Do you have anything to add about that part? Yeah, that was pretty not like just happened quickly.
Yeah. Then the nurses came in and Emily came in and started pushing.
Yeah, which I think is funny. So I had an epidural at that point, so I like could feel what was going on, but like it wasn't painful. It was almost like contractions felt like what they felt like overnight, where I could feel them happening and they were like uncomfortable, but they weren't painful. And so when I was pushing, I could like feel what was going on, but it wasn't painful. So I had already always imagined, probably from like movies and stuff, that when you're pushing, and I mean this is probably true if you don't have an epidural, but you're like pushing and it's super intense and it's super painful and you're like screaming and it's just like so exhausting. But it wasn't like that for me. Yeah, we were like, because you're pushing when you're having a contraction, so you push like 3 times in a row, and then you wait for a couple minutes until you have another contraction. And so we were just like chatting. I was just asking like Emily and the nurse about their lives. And we were just talking about like emotion and stuff, which made me feel a lot more comfortable because this is like kind of awkward, like the most vulnerable you are in your life. And I knew Emily a little bit, but I didn't know a lot about her. And then I had never met this nurse before, and they're like here with me in like the most intimate, most vulnerable, most like special time of your life. So I don't know. I thought it was kind of cool. Like when I wasn't pushing, we were like just like talking about life, which you thought was really weird.
It was really weird. You also, you're making that sound a lot more casual. You were like not completely with it when that was all happening.
Really?
Well, maybe not completely with it, but you were like, that was tiring for you. You like push. I think it's twice in a row. I think you pushed twice.
Well, yeah, I mean, it wasn't like
or whatever, and then like a couple minutes. So yeah, you weren't just like casually like leaning back, like, oh, hey, how's the kids and the husband? Like, how was your it? Like, it was hard. It was really hard.
Yeah, you're like pushing really hard.
But it wasn't this like big dramatic like scene. And so I guess I just wanted to clarify that. Like, it wasn't just like
it's not
another
easy.
day in the office. You're just chatting it up with them.
yeah, I might not have like explained that completely accurately. Yeah. It's not easy, but it's not. I think it felt like a breeze because what I had envisioned in my mind was not what it was. Yeah. So then...
It was also kind of weird for me. I didn't expect... I had to, like, hold your leg up the whole time. I didn't, like, not expect... I don't know what I thought I was going to be doing during that time. Again, just being kind of clueless. I didn't really think about, like, what's going to happen when he's actually, like, being pushed out. Like, for me, like, what I was doing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was kind of, like, weird. I was just, like, chilling there, like, holding your leg. Yeah, they're all like, paying attention to things and, like, doing monitors and, like, watching for all this stuff, and I'm just chilling there, like, how's it going over there? Is that what they'll still feel good?
Yeah. Well, I think I didn't expect that either. I don't know if it's like that everywhere.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess depending on how many nurses you have or whatever.
Yeah.
I honestly didn't know anyone would be holding up my legs. I thought that you like rest your legs on something.
Yeah.
I didn't know people had to hold them. I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of weird too. But then yeah, that's like tiring. I don't know if I'm remembering this correctly. I'm pretty sure. I don't think I made this up. But I like felt bad that you and the nurse had to hold my legs. And like, I don't know. So I think the nurse said something. I don't think Emily realized, but I was like trying to help, like trying to like hold the legs up. And then I think the nurse was like, you don't have to do that. Like, it's not your job to hold your legs. It's your job to like push the baby out.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, well, you're like just hold, like, I don't know. And it ended up being a long time. Do you remember how long I was pushing for?
Yeah, it was a couple hours. I mean, maybe like an hour and a half, hour, 45 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. So it wasn't like.
The timeline, he was born at like 120, I think.
He was born at 140.
140, yeah. So I think you started pushing like right around noon, I think.
Okay. So yeah, so that's what like, yeah, I was pushing and it wasn't, I thought it was like a decent experience until, again, Levi's heart rate was decelerating and I don't remember when it was, but one of the nurses said at some point that happens with boys a lot, that they like to be dramatic when they like come into the world, and boys often don't handle birth super well.
I think that was the doctor that delivered him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think she was making a joke about it afterwards.
Oh, afterwards.
I
Okay.
think so, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I didn't remember who said that or when they said that. But yeah, Levi's heart rate like kept dipping. And so at first, I guess like I don't know if it was happening more frequently, but I know for sure that when it was dipping, it was taking longer to come back up to where it was supposed to be. Do you know if it was happening more frequently?
I don't.
So then they like tried to put me in a different position, like for me to like be turned a little bit, and then they gave me oxygen between when I was pushing to like try to give him more oxygen. But it was just taking longer than they wanted, especially with his heart rate, because obviously, but most of the time that means that the baby's in some type of distress, and so you want them to be born as soon as possible.
Well, and if I remember correctly, that was happening when, like, after he had started crowning. Like, he was like crowning and then sinking back, and then crowning and then sinking. Like, he wasn't like he was dropping a lot, and then once he started crowning, he was kind of like stuck there.
Yeah. So that's a good point. He was progressing really well at first, and like that, like as I was pushing, he was moving quickly, and like he got to the crowning position fairly quickly.
Yeah.
But then he was basically like stuck there. Where when I would push, he would crown, and then when I stopped pushing, he would like move back up again. Which was weird. Like I didn't even know that could happen, but that was happening. That happened for a while. Like Emily was talking about it for a while.
Yeah.
And so then she called in the OB who was working to get a second opinion. And so the OB was there and watched, and she was like, oh, he's like progressing, and then was like, oh, he went back.
Yeah.
So yeah, she was like, they were like, you're pushing a while, but he's stuck, and it was almost like they weren't sure why. And it was like, this is kind of weird, and he obviously is in some type of distress, so like we just want to like try to get him out. So is that like accurate?
That's what I remember. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, because I was like, I don't know if that's completely accurate. So then they used like the vacuum thing on his head to do a vacuum assisted delivery, and so with like one push he was out, and he was perfectly fine. His Epworth.
I don't remember that being one push.
It was because they're only allowed to use the vacuum for like. She was there for a little bit before that, and they had to wait because if you do a vacuum assisted delivery, the like peds team has to be there. So they like called in the other people. So we were waiting for like I was pushing more while the OB was there, but it was only one push with like the vacuum. Cause yeah, he was really like close. He was just like stuck. It was weird. But when he was born at 1:40 p.m., his APGAR score right away was 9, and then it was 9 again. I don't even remember what one point was off for. But within 5 minutes of birth, babies are supposed to have a score of 8 or 9. If it's not at least 8, then there's some issue. Usually they'll like take them to the NICU or something. But yeah, Levi's score was 9 right away. So, and that has to do with like their color, how they're breathing, stuff like that.
He like came out screaming.
Yeah, he was like screaming right away. So he was fine, but then they said afterwards that his umbilical cord was around his neck. So that's partially probably why like his like oxygen. Yeah, he was holding it. So yeah, it was around his neck twice, and he was holding it with his hand, and then his other hand was on his face. So
that's why he was stuck.
His hand on his face, I think, was why he was stuck. But then, yeah, the umbilical cord around his neck and his hand on it was probably why his heart rate was declining, because it was like getting caught and getting stuck. The umbilical cord was, so it like he wasn't getting as much like blood and oxygen as he should have been. So all of that was like easy. Like when he came out, they just like took it off from around his neck and stuff, and that was fine. So Levi was fine, but I don't think I remember exactly what was like going on with me. Do you know? I don't think
I remember bits and pieces. I'm not sure how much you want me to say that's recorded.
Well, we can take anything. I can take anything out.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, I guess like you had a lot of cuts and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, cause
I remember that.
Yeah, they said that. I don't remember exactly what was like wrong or whatever, but he was like kind of like thrashing around. They said. And so it like tore you in a couple of places. You had a lot of bleeding afterwards, which like some of that is normal, but some of that like wasn't. So they had a lot of like. I think they stitched you in 2 different places. At least one. Well, you got stitches in at least one place. I remember that for sure. I thought they did 2 different things of stitches.
Well, I think maybe 3, because I had a cervical laceration, which is very uncommon. Because once you're 10 centimeters dilated, like completely dilated, there shouldn't be any tearing there, because the baby just like can fit through. So, and I actually remember Emily saying like apologizing, because she was like, I'm so sorry, like we shouldn't have like started like the pushing phase when we did. But then the OB was like, well, no, that just happened. Like, yeah. Like if you felt her and she was fully dilated, like that just happens. Yeah. Sometimes it's like super weird, finicky, but like sometimes, and obviously Levi was not like helping in the process at all. So, yeah. So that's like super uncommon. So they stitched me there. Oh wait, no, they didn't. That just like heals on its own. You're right. Yeah. So then I had like a lot of internal lacerations that they were doing like 1 stitch to fix, which must have been from him, like I don't know. And then I had a 2nd-degree tear, that's what people normally have when they give birth. The other ones are not common. So yeah, that's super like weird. But then I was also hemorrhaging. Like I was bleeding a lot more than I should have been. And so they normally like push on your stomach after you have a baby, but my uterus wasn't contracting the way it was, like it wasn't getting smaller how it was supposed to. So that's what they gave me, like a couple of like shots in my leg to get that to happen. So yeah, between those things, I was like bleeding way more than I was supposed to be.
Yeah, you had a lot going on.
Yeah, which is like kind of crazy. Like Emily was like because the OB was the one that was like working on all that stuff. But Emily stayed there. She was like talking to us, which was really cool and really nice. Like I think Emily helped me like feel like safe during that whole experience. But then the other part of it too was like I don't think I realized how serious it was as it was happening. Um, and part of that was like Levi was just born and he was laying on my chest, and like yeah, like he was perfectly fine. So I think we were both just like, well, I don't know what your experience was of this, but like I had no idea how long they were working on me as it was happening. I did, yeah, I was just like holding Levi and just like enjoying it, and like had no idea. Like they were talking about things and telling me things that they were doing, and I was just like, okay, whatever. Like I didn't really think that much of it, and I would have never guessed how long that lasted. And then I think things that were said like afterwards. I think I asked Emily a couple times like the seriousness of things, and I was never like about to die or anything like that. But like, yeah, I don't know. I didn't think it was that serious in the moment. I was just enjoying holding Levi.
Yeah, it felt pretty serious to me. I was like really nervous. Not that like you were gonna die, but I was like really nervous of like what are the like effects of this, and like again, clueless, like not really like knowing what's going on just in general. But then like yeah, I'm like just along for the ride. Like this baby's coming. I don't really know a ton about this process other than enough to get me through and to like help get you through. And then all I know is that things aren't going right. There's tears and lacerations and different things, and yeah, they're like stitching you up, and you're bleeding, and all this stuff's going on, and yeah, like there's like 50 medical people. There are not actually 50, but
There
like
are a lot.
yeah, there's like a lot of nurses like running around wiping Levi off, doing his vitals, and then like you're getting shots in your legs, and they're still cleaning up the mess, and it stinks, and I'm kind of like not really nauseous, but a little bit queasy, and
Yeah, am
like
I remembering that? I was thinking about that before, but am I remembering that correctly where someone told you to sit down for a minute at one point? Or did you just go sit down? You sat down on the couch at one point.
yeah, I don't remember if I was told to or if I just sat down.
But yeah, I felt that you might pass out.
Yeah. But yeah, it just was like there was like just a ton going on, and I think I was what I remember was that like okay, the Levi's like out and he's fine and he's healthy, but like my wife is still like getting worked on because yeah, you were doing like kangaroo care like while they were still working on you. So I think that's like what I was like not like again not like overly worried. Like I never thought you were gonna die or anything, but I was definitely like preoccupied with that for a while during all of that. Like, cause I think that was the other thing. It's just like chaos, and like I'm like, okay, these guys are like focusing on my wife, right? like taking care of my wife. Like the baby's here, he's healthy, he's good. Like, can we make sure that my wife's taken care of? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was like definitely, I think, a little bit of a different experience for both of us.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of funny too because we have that picture of like it's the picture we use most of the time of him when he was born. It's really like the only one that we have of all three of us.
Yeah.
And they're working on me. Like that was not a couple minutes after he was born, but
Yeah, it was pretty.
maybe like 30 minutes after he was born.
Yeah.
And yeah, Emily, like we said, Emily was standing there and talking to us and explaining to us what was going on, because the OB was the one that was like working on me, and so she took our picture, which was like really sweet. But I don't know. I think it's just like kind of funny looking at it now and being like, wow, there was actually like a lot going on behind the scenes of that picture.
The picture's like this, and the rest of it, everything is like that.
Yeah, like you would think that we're just like hanging out, like casually.
All as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was like actively hemorrhaging in that picture. So, I'm pretty sure. Which I think you said at one point, like, I'm pretty sure you said that either that night or the next day of like, there was a lot of blood.
Yeah, there was a lot.
Like you, yeah, like you were, yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of. I don't know.
Yeah, I was surprised. I was not. What's the word?
Expecting.
There's a fancy word for. I was not briefed on how much blood there was gonna be.
Well, so part of it too is that like you said, we are first time parents. We don't know exactly what to expect. We don't know like what the details are of birth. And so, like, I knew that there was going to be bleeding afterwards, and I knew that there was the afterbirth and all of that kind of stuff, but I didn't know, like, what that looked like. And so for me, I'm like, oh, they're just working on stuff, like, some tears happen, or, like, you know, there's bleeding that happens. And they said, like, you're bleeding a little bit more than normal, so, like, we're giving you this, like, shot. So I was like, okay, just a little more than normal, no big deal. But like you're right, there's not supposed to be that much blood. Like that was not like common, or that's not how it's like supposed to happen. I guess if it like happens with no complications, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, so when I realized that like it was more serious, I think than I realized was when the OB was saying, I don't know if she was talking to a nurse or what, but I was like listening to them talking about like what they were doing, and the OB said that they needed to give me antibiotics because I was open way longer than I should have been. And it's like not good to be like exposed for that long because then yeah you can get infections. And then they were talking about giving me a blood transfusion. Mm-hmm. And like if that was necessary or not. And I was like, whoa, like why would I need a blood transfusion? And like I guess that this was actually like more serious. And then well really like after that the nurses that were taking care of, not all of them, but at least a couple of them, looking at my chart or looking at like the birthing process, I don't know, like probably looking at my chart, they when they were like checking on me after I had Levi were saying like I not a warrior, I'm not using that word, something's like synonymous to like oh you're like a warrior and like that like must have been so intense and like it's not always like that, so like don't be afraid to do it again, or like stuff like that, like it doesn't always happen like that, like don't be afraid of it or whatever. And I was just like what are they talking about? Yeah. So I don't know, I think after that and then like reflecting on it after we got home, and I was in a lot of pain I think like 2 weeks after I had him.
For longer than that, I think, yeah.
Well, no, I wasn't in that much pain when we first got home. And then I think like a week after I had him. By the time we got to your parents, I wasn't in pain. He was only 3 weeks old at that point.
Yeah.
But at whatever point, I was in like a lot of pain at one point. So yeah, I was like.
Man, I think you were still in some pain when we went down there because I think we had that conversation of like making sure we were stopping on the car ride frequently enough for you to like get out and walk around and like.
Oh, maybe. But yeah, so yeah, it was like more intense than I think either of us were expecting. And I think it was ironic because I didn't want to get induced and didn't want to get an epidural, but I like looking back, I think being induced was a really good thing because Levi was already 8 pounds 15 ounces, and was already stuck, which I don't think was because of his size. I think it was just because he wasn't cooperating with the process at all. Yeah. Which is funny now knowing him as a 14-month-old child. He is so determined and so stubborn, and like knows what he wants, and like has gone through every milestone early because he just decides he wants to do it, and so he figures out how to do it. So he didn't want to be born yet, so he didn't help. But yeah, I just think that it was like I don't think ironic is the right term, but just like really we were seeking the Lord in the process, and
Mhm.
we're like, okay, we have this plan, and this is what I really want. You didn't really care. You're just like, whatever you want is what we'll do. So it's really like I really wanted that, but held on to it pretty loosely. I think after that December 1st appointment, because I was like, whatever the Lord has for us in this process, if we're safe and healthy, like that's what really matters. And so being induced, I think, was better than waiting longer. And then the epidural made it so that, um, all of those complications that happened after he was born, they just like attended to right away and didn't have to worry about anything because I had the epidural. So I could like feel them doing stuff, but like I wasn't in any pain. And so that was ended up being a huge blessing. And that was actually something too. The OB said that usually, like if they had seen everything that was going on from the beginning, um, because they couldn't see, there was so much bleeding that they couldn't see all of the different like lacerations and stuff. But she said that if they had seen that from the beginning, that they would have taken me to an ER, and that's usually where they do those repairs is in the ER. Yeah, which I would have really not liked that because then I wouldn't be with Levi or Avery like right after he was born. So yeah, it ended up just being like really cool to see the way that the Lord was like, we didn't know what was going on and we weren't really making those decisions ourselves. It was like what the situation led us to, if that makes sense. So yeah, there was a lot of trusting that was a part of that, and it ended up. I think I learned more from that process than if it would have gone exactly how I wanted it to go. Yeah, you have any thoughts on it?
No.
No. Okay. Well, yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Okay.
Why are you being so weird now?
I want you to go look at how long this has been.
I bet it's been an hour and a half.